I did this. I did the class, and the stream wasn't working. I was like, oh man, it was important, so I had to redo it all. Anyways, okay, so we're going to talk problem solving resources. We're going to talk about benevolence ministry. We're going to talk about suicide. We'll pause there, and then we'll take a break. Okay, and then we will cover. We'll pause with all that, and then we'll pick up on the on communion. So we'll cover all that stuff, and then that'll be all of it. Then the next parts of all this is that I got to verify with everyone as far as the current lay ministers who's all going to recommit for the next year. That'll take me a week or two, and then we will do a commissioning service. And what we do is we have the current and the new lay ministers, present them. You guys are given a credential card. I think it's certificates, and then we pray for everybody, and that's done. So we'll have like about probably 8, 10. Finally, they'll do lay ministers and all that fun stuff. No gold cord, things like that. We give you a lanyard with the name tag on it, but that's about it. So but because we have encouraged people, the lay ministers specifically, to wear the lanyards because people know who they are and all that stuff. So when you're praying for people and all that stuff, so we covered a lot of ground. We talked a lot of different stuff, but we're going to cover a few things. Like I said, the card is the biggest thing for new converts to come forward, talk to them, pray with them, get the card filled out. That's without the card, it's important that we talk to them. It's hard for us to follow up, and a lot. And now this is a funny thing. We will do. We may have like 30 people come forward. We'll make phone calls, and we will reach 3 or 4 of them. To be honest with you, because you get a lot of voicemails and all that fun stuff. We will send letters out. We'll reach out to them, but it does make a big difference. And what I've seen over the years is how it works. Is that someone come forward to want to follow Christ? Like we had probably about 10 people. I would say we had more. We had like 20 accept Christ at the altars and for Teddy Shuttlesworth. I got cards, about 12 or 15 of them. Some were folks that I knew who they were and all that fun stuff. Called them up. I had 3 at the time that said, we want to be water baptized. Okay, well, so we had water baptism last week. I called all of them. You want to be water baptized? I don't know. That's the command of the Lord. You need to be water baptized? Well, I don't know. And it's like, okay. And so what will happen, though, is that one of those, probably those 3 or 4 that I called, it was 3. 4. Will probably be water baptized within the year. Just how it works out. That's the law percentage. Okay, I will do that. They'll do it. The praise in the park. They'll do. They'll do that eventually. But it's a process. And so without calling them, reminding them, connecting with them, some not everybody comes to church right away. Some it's a process too. I just recently saw someone and our newcomers that are they came to Christ like a while ago, and they started coming to church, and they're kind of in that, they're kind of working through the process. And Attila, who gave his testimony, when I was water baptized, he came. His wife came to church. We were praying for him. He came to Christ. He's come through a really wild time, and is really growing in Christ a lot. And it's just that ongoing process. But yet they came a year or so ago, probably out of like an Ed or something like that, and all that stuff. So it's a process. So, but the cards help us.
Was sprinkled way back.
Oh, really?
In the church for years, and last year she decided she wanted to be baptized. She wanted to be
immersion. Okay.
91 years old.
Wow.
And
that's something.
So we helped her up there and went down, and her little feet were just kicking when. Because she's afraid of water.
Okay, well, that's a big fear, yeah.
And but she got dumped.
I've worked with this a couple times. I probably the worst time I had this absolute fear of water, and says okay. So we'll meet me like a month before water baptism. Meet me at the church. Why? Let's go open the tank. And we walked in the tank. This is how deep it is. Okay, and the water will be up to here. Okay. Then so they filled the tank and heated up the Saturday before. So meet me Saturday night. So we got the tank, and they just walked in there by themselves, and then I walked with them, and they go, okay, you good at this? I'm good at this. So it's just it's the fear of the water, nothing else. They really want to make that public profession.
My grandpa used to hold my mom underwater when she was a kid, and she never got over that.
Oh yeah. That's stuff that's scary for folks.
So, but she finally 91 years old.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. It all.
Yep.
Have my I's dotted, my T's crossed.
All right, so let's talk about some stuff here. Let's talk about problem solving. And the reason we talk about that, it's kind of a how to do some brief counseling type of stuff when it comes up, because if you come across something, is you got to help them out. So the goal of helping is action, whether it be making a decision, accepting a loss that cannot be changed, learning a new skill, finding a job, something else, thought and decisive action that leads to growth. Knowing what the problem is, but being unable to find a solution is common difficulty. I got a problem if I don't deal with it yet. It's useless to boil down the problem if no action is going to be taken. So you can say, what is the problem? They'll tell you in 2 seconds the problem is, but they don't know what to do about it. So there's 8 steps I laid out here. And this is actually, they call it solution-focused counseling. And this is kind of a really brief outline of it that anybody can do, and you can do just talking to them. Number one, pray for clarity. Pray through the process when you talk with a person. So, begin. Let's pray about this issue. Let's just take a moment, pray about it. Let's talk about it. Then, ask the person to identify the issue. Oftentimes, if you can, have them write it down. If I'm talking, just write it out. Okay, and so everyone's real clear what the problem is. Now, if you got, it's always funny talking to 2 people. Got a couple. What's the problem?
Yeah.
One will say 6. One have it's 13. Okay, let's just work it through. So we got to be clear what the problem is. Then number 3, understand everyone's interests. Why is this important? Why is it important to you? Why is this such a crisis right now? If you have several people involved, the best solution is one that satisfies everyone's interest. It's not just one person, but several people's interests. This is a time for active listening, thought, and feeling. So active listening, let me talk about this real quick because this comes up in a couple places. Active listening is a really important skill when working with people as a whole, okay? Especially in the context we're talking about today, both in problem solving and the suicidal stuff. Because active listening says, okay, this is what you're thinking, this is what you're feeling, do I understand it? That's all you got to do. You don't need to solve the problem. Most times you just want to give them a solution. Just stop doing that, okay? Doesn't work when someone's got in a rut or in an emotional state. It's just, okay, help me understand why you got there. Why do you think this happened? Why do you feel, what's the emotions you have with this? Help me understand it. And then if you understand it, you can say, you're thinking this is your logic behind it, right? You don't have to agree with it, okay? It won't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
But then what's your emotion with it? What's this cause? This cause you be scared of? Scared of what? Are you overwhelmed by it? Are you confused by it? Are you just, what's the issue? What's your emotion of it? Just identifying with that, because when someone hears someone understand what they're thinking and feeling, they feel known. That in itself, okay, I feel better. It's a very powerful tool, And that's just, a lot of times we talk with friends. It's good friends will help us do that. Good family will help us do that, okay? But it's when I always say, well, what are you listening for? The logic they're thinking and the feeling that they have. They're actually 2 separate things. Okay, and you want to, and you want to say, is this what you're thinking? Is this what you're feeling? They go, yes. Okay, good. That's all you got to do. Don't go, okay, well then listen, don't jump. Just stay there with them and that's fine.
That's part of when I was selling the sales process. They tell you what they want and all that, and then you have to repeat it back to them. So
right.
Let me get this straight. You want this.
Right. But then they would say there's a logic to it. That's a thought, but there's a feeling with it. That's a little bit different. So, okay, what's your feeling? Why do you feel that way? So help me understand it. And you don't want to be judgmental. You want to just kind of hear it out. Okay. And as you're praying, you go, well, boy, that's a lot of emotion with that. Can we pray about that right now? Sure. Okay. But that's a real big step. But that active listening step is really, really important. Active assertive communication is telling the person your thought and feeling, which a lot of times people have a tough time doing sometimes. List possible solutions. This is a time to do some brainstorming. Now, I like the ideas. Okay, so if you got this is your logic, this is your issue, this is your logic behind it, this is emotions behind it. Maybe some other people have some logic and feelings behind it too. Well, what ideas can we come up with that's really creative, and then brainstorm about it? Like, okay, I put like 50 to 100 ideas. Yeah, a lot of ideas. And you don't judge them. You don't try to say, okay, if we won $1 million, okay, that would solve this problem. That'd be great. If we sold a car, okay, that's an option. If we did this, we did that, we did this, we did that, we did this, we did that. We just kind of go through all these and just keep on shooting ideas. You throw some in, let them throw some in, and the weirdest ideas is really good. Now, this we call a matrix. So, for example, when I would do. I use this stuff with my family all the time. So, plan for vacation. Me and Rosie and the kids are taking a staycation in town, or we're going out of town. What do you want to do? Everyone's got their priorities. Okay, what they would like to do. Okay, come up with ideas. And it's always fun because I do staycations. It's always it's cheap time, right? Because you're not spending money, you won't go anywhere. And so, but we have some money. And okay, kids, what do you want to do? And they would they come up with ideas that are really cheap. It's great, and they got excited about. Okay, we'll do that. That's awesome. Better I thought. And then if we'd use one of their ideas, they thought it was best thing sliced bread. Usually, good solutions are meet all the different needs. Okay, so but when you don't judge it, that's a big thing. Oftentimes we judge it when we kind of put out ideas and shoots down ideas, but it's not the first 5 ideas that come out. It's the down 25, 50, 30 ideas down the road, it comes out that something really good comes out, and that's a good way to do it. And that process, though, everyone's shooting out ideas, everyone's contributing to it. That creates ownership of it too. Okay, so that's step number 4. Step number 5, evaluate. Okay, that's what I call the matrix, where you say, okay, here's all these ideas. Okay, oftentimes what's financially smart, what's timely. You can kind of create. These are the priorities. When I used to do it with the family, I said, okay, this is what budget we can do, time we could do. I would do. I can't think, how would I do this? I would do. And then my kids could. I can give a score 1 to 5. Budget was like, this is like too expensive. It would be like a 1, or 5 was like really economic or free. Time, it was no big time commitment, very manageable deal, not realistic. 1 to 5. And then everyone give their own score, and you give like points to it. Then Ben would have, Ben scored best score. Then Rosie scored, Mom scored. My parents will write stupid stuff, so and veto power. But we recreate that, and you keep on talking about it. You keep have all these ideas. And as you think, okay, what's realistic? What's the need to be met here? Okay, I have to pay rent tomorrow, and I'm broke. I'm broke as a joke. I don't have no money. Okay, what are solutions? Have you talked to your family? Have you talked to this? Have you talked to your boss about work advance? Do you have any, what type of money? You have any money in your bank? Do you have any other assets you can look at that you can borrow against? All these ideas. What's smart? What's reasonable? What can be done in the time frame that you have? Can you talk to your landlord? All that stuff. And then keep working it through. Okay, these are all. Then come up. Okay, this is like you please like 2 or 3 solutions. Okay, make it happen. And then follow up with them, see if they did it. So then you select an option and you work the matrix. You can go through that process. Okay, develop the plan and write it out. What are they going to do? Step 1, 2, 3, and writing it out is really important. When someone's sitting there going, "I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. It's something about I'm going to actually take action with this." Right, have a plan, work your plan. So when I talk to people all the time, I have certain clients that are really good about okay, and I always like a summary and I go, okay, wait a minute, they got to pull up their phone and I go, whatever. Well, that writing it down, they will take action with it. Then you define that idea too. Then define what is a win. Then follow up that they win. And define what is a win, what will be a good solution, and what they started with will be different than what they ended with typically. Because what they usually have, there's only one solution. That solution is not possible. When you come up with ideas, different solutions, okay, that changes what your win is, and then you can move forward. So, happens a lot of times. We'll have some guy, I don't have money for rent, and I don't know how I'm going to do this, and they come to church and they're frustrated and stuff like that. Well, let's talk about that. I mean, can the church write a check? Yeah, we could. Then we'll talk about that benevolence policy we have in place. We'll talk about it in a minute here. But we don't do that right away. We first, what are your resources here? And let's talk about that. And then, because we can give you a Band-Aid, but that's not going to fix you for next month. Right. And so what's really going on here? And so we talk about that, we work through that, and we do that. So that's a big thing. So, all right, so let's talk about resources when you come up with different ideas that when you some of these crisis situations you can come across. Number one, what resources do they have? Family and friends is the first one. Do they have friends or family they can call them? Have they called upon them? Oftentimes, if someone's in a crisis, they don't want to reach out to family because they feel ashamed. But they'll often find there's family happy to help if they know there's a need. Some situations they've tapped that all. I've asked them, they said no. They've done all they can. They helped me last month, and then maybe the family's frustrated. Then we got to walk through all this stuff. Okay, there's community resources. Macomb County we have shelter services, food, senior services. Did I give you guys this copy? This community resource guide? Did I give you guys this? Yep. Okay. So there's this, which talks about, and this is the latest thing. And now this, in reality, I was surprised. This is put together by our Ruth Woman, and she goes, yeah, a lot of the things we used to have went away. The COVID knocked out a lot of the programs we have. I go, really? So, I mean, there's Macomb food programs, there's food banks, gleaners, all that. Food-wise, even we have a food pantry here. I mean, someone says I need groceries, we can give a bag of groceries now. It's not a big deal. We'll do that in a heartbeat. But most of the time, if that's not their need, it's something usually beyond that. But then housing wise, if they're like, and this, there's McCrest, Lighthouse Outreach Centers are two that we work with. There are a few more. In the county, there's other resources. I've gotten many times. I'm gonna be evicted. I got my eviction notice, and there's a time frame in that most people don't realize this. If someone gets an eviction notice, the way the law works, and there's legal aid in the county, especially in Macomb County, if you contact the courthouse quick enough, they do all this. I mean, they do some incredible stuff, and they can stop the eviction, help you cover your rent, and it's a great program. But if you get too late, there's a window of time. If you don't act quick enough, and I know landlords. Yeah, this is what happens. This works out because it's win-win for me. It's win-win for them. And because there's a couple of guys in church that own property, and they go. They've had they don't get stuck with the bill. They work it out, and they get maybe they lose 20%. They go, okay, no big deal. But I'm still moving forward, and I still keep my people in the house. I don't want to kick anybody out, and it's a real win-win. But they don't know that, and so they wait till the last minute. Then it's like, okay, you're too far gone. The county can't. There's nothing the courts can do right now. Or there's been too much action because there's a long process. Somebody gets eviction. There's a long process that leads out, and each of those points, there's points of intervention that they can take. If they don't take those points of intervention, it gets really bad. But then we've had to work. I've worked with a lot of people through that stuff. It does work. I know folks have used that system through the courts, and as long as it got it quick enough, it's a win-win. But interfaith helpers, we have that on my outline. They do a lot of seniors help. Like it's a bunch of seniors helping seniors. It's a church group organization. The gal that was running it for many years, she passed away during COVID, unfortunately. But she had a whole board and so forth. But they kind of quieted down during COVID, and they just came back. But if we have seniors at their houses in disrepair, or whatever, they'll go out and help do that. Now, if they're church members, we will send our own people out and help with that. We'll talk about the church benevolence policy in a minute here. So, but we have a lot of community resources that there's needs come up. Often family doesn't know. That happens quite a bit. I've had people, an elderly person says, I can't pay my rent. I don't have groceries. We'll take care of it. I'll find out who the family is. I'll call the family. Do you know what's going on? I have no idea. I go, what can we do? Oh, we could do this and this and this. So someone's got to know. It's information. Mm-hmm. So I had a situation just recently. Someone asked for benevolence help with their electric bill, and I thought, well, and then it was going to be shared by someone else and so forth. And then we have one family member. It's not like brother sister. It's like an uncle, aunt, or something like that. And I said, do you know about this? And he goes, no, we don't know anything about this. I go, what can you? Well, we can probably take care of it. Don't worry about it, Pastor Rain. I said, okay, cool. So there's a lot, when we ask those questions, it makes a big difference. If we need to step in, we can. So, okay, let's talk about Lakeside resources. Did I give you guys this brochure? No, let's mention one?
Yeah.
Okay. So this one talks about how we
that's the one that.
that's community resource. Okay, let me give you this one then. Okay, this is a community resource. So in benevolence resource, step up. So benevolence resource, we do as a community resource. So benevolence, the church has a benevolence policy.
Thank you.
Pastors, deacons, and elders deal with that directly. Lay ministers don't directly deal with it. But probably the next time we have an elders lay minister, I review the policy with all the elders, and you guys will kind of be aware of it more. But what it is if someone walks up to the church and says, I have a benevolence need. I or Pastor Jordan, if I have an elder to sign or a deacon or a lay minister to sign, I'll do it. But usually it's us. We'll sit down and talk. There's an application we got to fill out, and then to fill out an application, there's only a certain dollar amount. If you come off the street, it's like maybe $100. I keep gift cards in my office for my gift cards. Here's my gift card. Do that. Most of them they're fine with that. But that's because there's certain layers that we can do. If they are attenders of the church, okay, that's different. Then we'll really consider what's going on. And there's certain dollar amounts. I can give like $200 and not worry about it if it's a church member, and just get someone to sign off on it. Pastors, his limit's like $450. Then beyond that, it goes to the board. So, because we've had people, I can't pay my rent, I need help with it, and they've done the family resources, they contact community resources, and they're still struggling. Okay, so we will help cover the rent up to usually about half, and so we'll do that, and we'll make that happen for them. If they're church members, if they're members, tithers, then there's an extra max amount. We'll give you back half your tithe or your full tithe back, if that's the case. And we've had that happen a couple of times. But different needs come up. When Chuck Rockwell had it, when Bethany needed it, we put the ramp in the house. That came out of benevolence. The materials for the guys donated labor, and the church paid for the material, wood material. I asked, but they just did that. But when Chuck Rockwell needed a ramp, church has paid for that. There's different needs that comes up like that we take care of. We've had folks in the church, elderly, that need help for rent or whatever, or food or electric bills. That comes up. Utilities come up. We'll contact them. We'll contact the family. We'll say, hey, what's going on? And they go, we can't help them. We've done all we can. Okay, we'll do what we can, and we'll work it out. And usually it's working through the whole what's available, what's resource, what's smart. And with like utilities, what happens typically is that people get behind, but there's a lot of community resource that they don't realize. And so, but once you get to the point that you're at almost shut off, you can't tap into that. You got to be earlier on with that stuff. And so we'll pay off to get shut off. Okay, now what about the community resource programs that DTE may have, or Consumers Energy, or the water company? Okay, what can we do to make sure they don't get the stuff turned off? And then they'll do that stuff. So it's kind of social worker type stuff that we get involved with. How that typically happens. So let's say it doesn't happen too often. Usually it's a deacon, pastor, and elder that does it. But I've had lay ministers do it sometimes too. They'll be part of the process. And so because all of these are big issues. And so you like for example, let's say someone has like a senior home, like a classic one we've done in the past. Someone's a senior and they have their home's in disrepair, and it's an issue of safety in the house, and so they need help with that. So what we'll do is we'll coordinate a team, and they'll go do repair or whatever needs to be done. We have a lot of people that do trades and so forth in the church, or they can fix whatever. We got electricians to plumbers. There's about everything we can get covered. And so we coordinate that. They go out and fix what the problem needs to be fixed, and then we'll have someone follow up with them, and that will be often a lay minister or an elder. And they'll okay, how's everything working? Is everything all right? Do we need? And they'll be kind of the person to stay and check. Is the house okay? Is this okay? Whatever. And that works out pretty well. But then, as an elder or lay minister, you may be assigned. Okay, I need you to follow up. I'll ask anybody available to do something like that, and they go, yeah, I can do that. Okay. It's like you do with your mom. You go and you check on her. Make sure, and sometimes these people don't have those resources.
She said she needed help with her bills and everything, so we went over and she'll listen to Michelle before she'll listen to me anyway.
Mm-hmm.
She's paying her tithe, and then she's paying another 15% on top of her tithe to TBN and all these places.
Yep.
So yeah, we're buying her groceries.
Yeah, because she don't have enough. It's like
right.
Plus how she doesn't have money for Christmas. She doesn't have money for bitches.
Right, because she's giving away
25%. And boy, she just doesn't want to stop doing that. It's
Yeah, that's hard. Yeah, it's hard. So that's a brief overview of the benevolence, community resources, how we all do that. We'll go probably the next elders and lay ministers. I was like, well, we haven't reviewed that with them. I like reviewing that with the elders and lay ministers every couple of years, and we'll go through all that, and you guys understand a little bit better. But there's a process with it. Basically, we do an application. If it's a big dollar amount, then it goes to almost everything of any serious amount goes to board, and they have the board. If it's has to immediately, they can act on pretty quickly. And then what we have funds available, that sort of thing too. So let's talk about suicide. What do you do if someone says, I want to kill myself? Okay? So let's talk about this and what's the right thing to do and all that stuff. Okay.
Have you had that happen very often?
Me? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. 2 or 3 times a year I got to deal with somebody that along those lines. So, and it's that's the thing. Now, for me, if someone says I'm going to kill myself, my responsibility is different than anybody else on campus because I'm a counselor. So I'm a licensed counselor. So the steps I have to take are totally different than anyone else has to take.
Right.
So, I was joking with the pastor. Yeah, you just got to refer to someone like me. So I go, I can't do that. So the don't do is one, you don't ignore the comment. You got to take it seriously.
I just got to turn it up more. I'm still.
Oh, you getting too cold? Okay.
Sorry. I'll turn it back down before I leave.
Okay, fine. So you don't want to ignore the comment. You don't want to use guilt, meaning we tend to go, well, God doesn't want you to do that, sort of thing, and that doesn't help the person at that moment.
Right.
Understand?
Don't load the gun.
Huh? Yeah, don't help load the gun. The issue that oftentimes, and there's the majority of times someone's in suicidal thought, we call ideation, and they're in a heightened emotional state, and they don't think reasonable. And the first thing you do, and you try to get them to use logic, it doesn't work. Okay, there's 2 forms. The majority of it's high emotional state, and once they get past that emotional state, you'll do fine. There's others that are like low emotional state. They're chronic depressives. They call dysthymias, and it's always present. And now there's this kind of ongoing depressive type that'll come up in different ways, shape, and forms. You got to address it and deal with it, understand it. There's those that are high emotional, and they get high escalated. There's also bipolar, which is the highest risk. Those with bipolar are the highest risk of successful suicide, and bipolar 1 is the highest risk. And so, and they won't tell you won't know about it until it's almost too late. You may know about it a couple times at times, but they'll keep on planning it, and no one will know about it until they just actually do it. They're very successful at that, and those are the most difficult. But you never ignore it because you don't know what type you're dealing with. Okay, if you use guilt, which is kind of emotionally manipulate them, it'll repress it till it comes out later and doesn't help them. Okay, you don't want to pass them off to someone else. I mean, you don't say, well, okay, why don't you call the church and talk to Pastor Randy? Because Pastor Randy may not be able to answer the phone. Pastor Randy may not be available. Pastor Randy, don't. That doesn't work, because the only person you can really pass them off to is have to call 911. The police come get them. Is because if they're talking to you, they're talking to you, and you want to what I call stay present. What's going on? How can we do this? Understand that oftentimes it's a mood that happens. Again, majority of the time, like 6% of the time, it's heightened elevation of emotions. They're getting overwhelmed by something, feel hopeless. There's always a feeling of hopelessness. That's a key element. And so, but that will fade as they calm down. What I know I got to do is get them past that point, and then if I can get past that point, if I can't get past that point, then we're calling 911. We're going to the hospital, and we're going to go take that step. So it's and then what resources do they have? Like when I say use other resources, like people that they're around. Can we call somebody? Can we talk to somebody? Do we need to talk to a parent, family member, those that they trust, that they know that they care about them? Oftentimes, if they're at the state, they don't feel that anyone does, and so you can try to reach out to. It may or may not work. It's a thing. Don't give the devil too much credit. It's the devil's work. It's just understand it's within the own person's heart and mind. This is where they're at, and so the devil's pushing a button. I'm not denying that, but they're actually using their own emotions to drive it. I think yes, because and based on the idea that if it goes back to where it's my belief, you have thought, feeling, and will. We talk about thoughts and feelings, and there's will. Will is your faith, and your emotions can drive you to the point of committing suicide. That's just known. From bipolar experience, high emotional energy, in that, but they enter kind of an altered state of mind, if you would. If they can confess Christ and they believe that in their will, I don't think God will reject it. Now, you can make a biblical argument that can be the case. It's murder. I don't disagree with that, but I think if someone is a Christian and they profess Christ, and they could not get their heads around what's going on and their emotions around what's going on and what tanked them so much, and there's a lot of biological things that happen, especially in bipolar, that it just puts them in a tank and they can't get out.
I don't think when you're at that situation anyways, I don't think you're in your right mind.
You're not in your right mind.
And I think God will see, He knows, right?
He knows.
He may say to himself, well, that person just was not in her
right
mind at all.
Exactly. And that's why I kind of go along those lines that, God is merciful and justful and all that, and it wasn't self-harm or another person self-harm themselves, but it really is ultimately up to God. But I don't know. Because again, you can make an argument, no, that's murder, and you have a valid argument against it. I can't disagree at that point. But I go on the side of grace. I think His grace would be more sufficient. Based, especially if they profess Christ and they're strong in their faith, but then things go hard on them. It's just tough. Okay.
Well, I think sometimes things happen, and like my nephew, he was diagnosed bipolar, but then they took him off some of his meds, and the doctor said they tend to self-medicate. So he got into that huffing.
Yeah, that's dangerous stuff.
And, I don't think he intended to kill himself, but he died.
But he did. Yep.
And, there was no suicide note, there was no...
Yep.
And I think he just was so hopeless and desperate.
Yep.
But the thing frustrated me, he wouldn't do the things the doctor told him to do.
And that's with bipolar is one of the most difficult things is keeping them under medication. And typically, what I get frustrated with is that the doctor will give him medication and prescribe, but then there won't be a strong emphasis of therapy along with it, because that's a therapist.
He tried hanging himself one other time. My dad actually found it.
Yeah.
And, but
Yep, and bipolar with addiction, they'll eventually, it's not uncommon, they commit some type of suicide or death by too much of the medication to
Yeah, the bag
to
over his
something.
head and duct taped it. He took that computer cleaner.
Right.
Poked a hole in the bag.
Yep. And the huffing stuff is suspicious.
After it happened, I found out 25% of all kids that do that die the first time they try it.
Yeah, it's high risk. Very high risk behavior.
And it freezes you to where you can't take the bag off, or it kills you instantly.
It's just nuts. All right, let's go to suicide do's. No 3 parts. We'll talk about 3 parts in just a minute, what they are. If they're talking, do actively listening. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What's going on? Just listen to their story. That is a very powerful tool. If you do that for about 30 minutes to an hour, they may get past the heightened emotional state they're in. As a therapist, that's one thing that we do. But it's just active listening. That's all you do, and you just kind of stay connected with them. You have to be.
Talk. I mean,
most time they'll talk. They'll be highly emotional, so they'll talk. They won't make any rational sense, but you just keep on asking, help me understand what's going on, what you're feeling, what brought you to this point, what got you here today, why are you feeling this way? Typically,
my nephew, one of the things it does is you lose control of your bowels.
right.
And I found where he pooped from the kitchen all the way to mom and dad's living room.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was just like a dog that just.
Right.
But I didn't know any of that at the time,
yeah,
so you really couldn't react to it.
Right, it's medication. Yeah, that stuff's just nasty. So you got to be patient with it. Praying is a good thing to do. Prayer is a good thing to do when you bring God into it, and that you're praying with them, not just for them, but with them. That helps them kind of work too. If they're still at high risk, call 911. If you're insured, call 911. Don't say, okay, it's going to be okay. They won't do this. A lot, you can say, well, you promise you won't do this. They go, yeah, okay. That's not a bad thing to do. But if you're still risky, if you're still insured, call 911. Don't take that into your own hands. Then contact your pastoral overseer, which would be me. The biggest thing with that is that you have to, if there's high risk, if you're unsure if it's high risk, then call 911. Just don't. You just can't take the risk. Assume that it won't go away or whatever. It's just not smart. When I run some people sometimes. Well, yeah, but police have been called, the fire department's been called off and stuff. And Shelby Township, most communities around here, the fire department doesn't show up. It's the police show up, and they'll take them safely to the hospital, and they'll take care of it. Okay. The 3 parts, elements that raise suicide risk. Thanks. Okay, number 1 is a thought of suicide, which you call suicide ideation. A lot of people that deal with depression will have suicidal thoughts, and you say, well, okay, are you going to hurt yourself today? And you go, no, I just wish I wasn't right here anymore, or I don't wish I can get away from this. I don't want to be here right now. I don't want to be here today. I wish it just be all over. I want to get away from it. It's not necessarily suicidal plan. It's just if you feel overwhelmed, I'll be checked out. I'm just too down for whatever. Step 2, so the thought of suicide is one thing. Number 2 is a plan of it. Okay, and that's when your risk goes up quite a bit. They go, no, I got a gun. Got the bullets. I'm going to jump off the bridge. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it's a clear plan. That's when the risk goes from minor, quasi-minimal to it goes a lot higher. Then they have the means. Okay, I'm going to do this. Well, can you do this? No. Can you drive your car off a cliff? Well, around here you can't drive off any cliffs. But you could drive into an overpass. You could, there's things you can do. And so they got it all figured out. They go, okay, this is realistic to do so. So if there's a thought, a plan, and a means to do so, that's high risk. That's when those 3 elements are there. That's when you got to call 911. Okay, and so and then let them come in and take care of it, and then they'll take care of it. If you don't take any action, it could result in death and a lawsuit against you, the pastors, and the church. That's happened before. There's this case law from when the church was involved with someone became suicidal, and they were trying, we can counsel them, and they really weren't skilled to handle it. It was probably I can't remember. Yeah, they never got a diagnosis on the young man, but I know the case pretty well because we studied this stuff in school, and it probably was bipolar, and he was not diagnosed, and just treated a certain way, and there'll be no big deal. And they didn't see the signs. They know what they're talking about. They thought it'll be okay, and they didn't do due diligence, and the church got sued. The pastors got sued. It's been a case for years, and the courts. And you say, well, the thing is, you say, well, as a church, there's a whole what we call clergy privilege. When if you tell me now, just today in this day and age, if you tell me I killed somebody, and the body's at the bottom of the Detroit River, I can't do diddly squat about it because you tell me as pastor, that's clergy privilege. If you told me that you robbed the bank last year, clergy privilege. If you're going to tell me I'm going to kill myself, well, I got to call the police. If you're going to I'm going to kill someone tomorrow, homicidal, I got to report that. Okay, that's that. Clergy privilege does not protect homicide. But any other crime, I'm going to rob a bank tomorrow.
What about, because this was on 60 Minutes, and I knew the guy, this John Mellish, he grew up here, and it happened down in Florida, but a guy that he was counseling sexually molested his daughter's young person or son. I don't remember all the details now, but a number of years ago, it was on 60 Minutes. And because he didn't turn him in.
Yep. Clergy privilege states, based upon the law, it's actually the territory you're in, because by federal court you can get in trouble with it. But in general, I report child abuse. Child and elder abuse, I need to report. I can't. And how you do it and what you do with it and all that stuff, because I can be personally liable for it. Except all the pastors have what's called professional liability. I have higher because I'm a licensed counselor. Pastor has higher because he's the lead pastor. But we still have that. We have the obligation to report. And then, if you don't, and if you know, again, child abuse, elder abuse, that's not.
I was going to say,
Child abuse, it depends on state. Like Michigan requires clergy to report elder abuse. In some states, they're not required for elder abuse. Everyone requires child abuse, so you have to report. Suspect of it or whatever.
So if something like that happens with us, then we're to contact you right away.
Yeah, contact me. Right. Yep.
Okay.
So someone said, now you're a lay minister, so it's a different thing, but it still can be viewed as clergy privilege. But then there's a problem with it. I robbed the bank. I'm driving a car I stole, and I cannot be called a witness for that. I can't. I've been called in. They threaten to call in. Usually custody issues with kids, and they want us to report to court who's the better parent. I go, no, clergy privilege. Don't bug me. And I got subpoenaed one time. It was not a bench subpoena. A lawyer can do a subpoena. Anybody, a lot of lawyers can do subpoenas. Well, they don't mean squat. It sounds really fancy, but they're acting on an invitation of the court. But you're not compelled to come to court if it's under clergy privilege. So I get that every once in a while. No, that just do ain't going nowhere. But then when it comes to but then usually over custody issues, and we'll provide them with. We'll say, well, the parents were here. Here's a attention record. This is who we know brought the child. That's all we're going to give you, and that's because the parents have a right to that information. So that parent has a right to that information. And so that you're not going to get my opinion about any of that stuff.
Has a parent ever come to you and asked you to testify?
Oh, sure, but I won't, because it's a losing battle. Because then I as a clergy speaking against one, and then they can sue me back. That's the thing. I put my risk at being sued because I spoke for one and not the other.
Right.
And then that one, well, you broke clergy privilege. I'm going to sue you. So, clergy privilege is now, for example, the power of clergy privilege. When Clinton had his affair with Lewinsky, he did pastoral counseling. He did pastoral counseling because they're under clergy privilege. No one could ask those guys to come to court and testify. It was
very
protected.
Smart.
Yeah. It made it be.
It's almost like manipulative or whatever.
It is what it is. I'm very big on the court not messing around with counseling. I mean, there's this whole thing about where the shooter in Nashville, and I guess they had some mental health problems. I have no idea what the person's mental health problems were. Were they homicidal, suicidal? Well, by court, if they were seeing a licensed counselor, they have to report that.
Wrote a manifesto supposedly, but they won't reveal what the manifesto.
But who knew about that manifesto? That a licensed counselor or medical professional know about that, and they report that to police or not. But just because someone says I want to hurt someone, if I go by who might be the potential risk of hurting someone, I was talking counseling. Good Lord, there's no confidentiality, and that's not helpful.
The same thing that we were talking about just the other day is that when my brother was standing in front of the courts for that January 6th thing because he broke into the Capitol, he said
he'd written
on the computer, he said somebody should go in there and
clean house, basically.
clean house.
Mm-hmm.
his lawyer made the comment, well, okay, but I can text my girlfriend and say, I'm gonna go home and kill my husband because I'm so angry with him. That doesn't mean I'm gonna go home and kill my husband.
Right.
She said you can't prosecute on thought.
Right. You can't prosecute on threat, but did he go into the Capitol?
Yeah.
That's the problem. His action. His action.
Yeah.
The say it's one thing, but the action to do it's different.
Right. But he didn't do anything.
Right.
He just went into the building.
Right.
But that's not,
He still broke the law.
yeah. It's just.
He went up there, went to DC from Michigan with an intent to do something. And they would have put him in jail, except his wife died. So
Very unexpected.
yeah. So they
You got to get mercy with that.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they said, his attorney said, if you put him in jail for just 90 days, he'll lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
He'll lose his job, he'll lose his home, he'll lose everything.
So they put on probation?
He's got 3 years probation and 90 days house address and a
Okay.
$550 fine.
Okay. Okay. For trespassing.
Right.
Okay.
But they said, you screw up one more time.
Yeah, you can't get
and
in any more trouble.
you will go to jail. There's no.
We were watching the Trump thing just the other day when he got arrested, or they're going to arrest him or whatever. And I said, "Oh, my brother's got to be going crazy at his house right now."
So clergy privilege, does that extend to lay ministers? It's a little bit gray.
Yeah.
So, but understand though, is like, for example, I know a lot of information about a lot of people, okay? And I have to keep that confidential,
Right.
okay? Now, I'm a little bit different because I'm a counselor and I hear all kinds of stuff. And pastor knows a lot of information. But even though someone may have done something wrong, I would not say morally good, I can't say, I have to be careful what I say when they do something morally wrong. Now, the only way is, it's not, for example, if someone, and pastor's been sued over this stuff, okay? For example, a pastor was counseling a couple, he's a licensed counselor in Texas, but he was also a pastor, kind of like me, pastor and counselor. But at his church, he was counseling this couple, and basically, she was having an affair, and it was just bad news. He knew that there was a lot of problems with her, and so he removed her from membership based upon her behavior, because she was acting in sinful behavior. And in their policies, if you do that, they send a letter out to everybody about it. She said, and they basically, we're removing her membership because she's having an affair, and we're cutting her from membership.
You actually put in the letter what she was doing.
That's what they would do. That's what they would do. I wouldn't do that, but that's what they would do.
Just saying that she can't be a member because of whatever. Just say because of.
They're no longer a member or whatever, but no, they said because she's having extramarital affairs, she's removed from membership. Now, this lady was involved with leadership at the church.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's so. My goodness.
So he was a licensed marriage and family counselor. She sued him. You're a licensed marriage and family counselor. You can't divulge that information as a licensed counselor.
Defamation of character or whatever.
And so all that stuff, yeah. And so she sued him. Well, it went to court. Court held up his decision because his role to you was pastor. And in the context of, now, there's clergy privilege, but now if someone does something, and I have a thing written out. You come see me for counseling, it says, okay, you're going to see me for counseling, this, and it says clergy privilege, okay. But anything that you do against the teaching of the church or responsibility of the church, and we say for leaders. If I had a deacon come in to me and say, I'm having an affair with all these, 3 women or whatever, I'm going to say, no, dude, you're not going to say serve on the deacon board. Now, I've never had to do that when I work. I always say, you need to step down. Will you do that? Yes, I'll do that. Okay, cool.
But you won't make a letter saying.
But I would not. That was their policy.
Yeah.
That was their policy. Some church discipline's that harsh.
It was a Nazarene church in Illinois, and the pastor was having an affair with a lady, and the secretary got wind of it, and she came to the pastor and she said, I won't tell anybody, but you got to include me in it.
Oh my word.
And it all got out, and it was big,
Oh Jesus.
but it was just bizarre.
That's a mess. That's a
Yeah.
mess. So in the domain of the church can do church discipline within the church.
Right.
But it's wise not to do that with. That's clear. Now when I counsel, there's a form they fill out. This is what it works out. If there's child abuse, elder abuse, you're going to be reported. Suicide ideation, homicide ideation, we're going to deal with it. Anything else, it's confidential. I robbed the bank last year. Okay, I know all kinds of crimes about a lot of different people in the past. Whatever, I don't care. But again, if I molested a child 10 years ago and I did my time, okay, great. You're not gonna work with my kids.
Right.
But I don't have to do that. You have to get background checks, and that'll flag, and you won't do that.
Right.
So, we have systems in place to control that stuff, but that's how we deal with it. So, but yeah, but I can't say I could discipline someone. I could discipline a Sunday school teacher. I've done that before. Sunday school teacher goes, well, I had this one Sunday school teacher years ago, another church. He went on a cruise like a year before he started working with us. He was on a cruise with a married woman. I go, how do you what? Yeah, I did that. I go, you're not teaching my Sunday school. You're not. He's like, what? I go, no. Yeah, I'm not doing this, dude. So you gotta, there's discipleship, and so.
First, there's the choir director and another lady had an affair.
Yep.
And
It happens all
so
over.
they ended up, they actually divorced and married each other.
Yep.
But the second guy they got in for him, he turned around and done the same thing.
Yep.
Left his wife and kids and
All that stuff. Yep.
2 times in a row.
Yep. So I'm all about grace. I'm all about that. So and that guy actually we did. There's 2 guys that had that happen with different ones in different situations, but it's some type of something. Someone came up from their past. It was too recent. It was like years ago. It was like the year before. I go, no, you're done. And one said, okay, I go, you gonna do restoration? We'll do it. He goes, yeah. So I did 2-year restoration with him. It was great. He's doing great, doing wonderful. So I'm all for that. But the other one's like, oh, you're wrong. Nope. I'm not teaching my Sunday school. You're
Well,
out.
that's the same thing that we had talked about. I don't know for you, but like he's been divorced many times, and so have I.
Right.
And it almost gets held against you
3 times.
in a church because you've been divorced so many times. But no one knows my circumstances neither.
Right.
My first husband left me when I was 9 months pregnant. That was not my fault at all. I've tried taking him back numerous times. He's not cheating.
Right.
So, and then the second marriage, yes, it definitely was my fault. The third one was very abusive, physically and mentally. Why would I stay in that?
Right.
Especially when my kids all left.
Right.
I'm not going to lose my last child because this man is abusive to me and not to my children.
Right.
So I think there, like you said, there is always grace.
Just got to measure that out because that's how
Yeah.
that process with it.
I mean, am I a good marriage counselor person to say to somebody, oh, well, you should well, no, probably not. Oh, yeah, he's a good catch. Well, I don't know. My judgment might be a little bit off.
Right.
So, but still,
There
that
again,
shouldn't,
you might be the best person for
that
it.
shouldn't be held against us just because we've been
Right.
married so many times.
Yeah, and that's one thing we're as pastors we kind of walk through and try to navigate. Where's the person at? What's going on? What's the fruit today that we see? And that's what we got to kind of go off of. We're gonna stop here with this. We're gonna take a 5-minute break, and we'll stop here, and then we'll go over communion and what's all involved with that, and then we'll be done for the day.
Okay, because before we weren't going to do communion. Now it's
That has changed. That was and something that I pastor goes, "They want to change." I go, "We are."